Rappers who switch genres. Rap, by its very nature, draws influence from many art forms around it. Its lyrics reference everything from classical art to pop culture, and its production samples everything from old soul classics to snippets from famous news segments. In essence, an integral component of rap is borrowing facets from other genres and using them to innovate new and exciting sounds. As a result, it's not surprising that many rappers are incredibly well-versed and have a strong love for all genres of music. And while for some, that love may be limited to their Spotify playlists, others decide they would like to take a more active hand to those genres and switch up their own style. Though it doesn't happen often, there have been a handful of rappers who have taken the risk and released an experimental project outside of their typical genre. For some, this meant a new level of critical acclaim. For others, it meant ridicule for a poorly received project. But each artist took a courageous risk by attempting to push themselves past their normal comfort zone. Before we start this video, make sure you like it and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Number 8. Lil Wayne. Many critics and journalists have referred to Lil Wayne as rap's first rock star, due to his no-cares-given attitude, larger-than-life persona, and elaborate, luxurious lifestyle. However, for an artist who has been on the rap scene since he was literally 14 years old, the honorary title wasn't quite enough. In an interview in 2009, Wayne talks about how his global fame created a life he could never imagine, and how he found himself tired of rapping. He said, quote, "The rock stuff just comes from what my life is now. I've grown into this person," explaining how he felt the need to transcend being the best at rap to being the best period. Unfortunately, Wayne's debut rock album, Rebirth, did not necessarily accomplish that for him. Though it was performed well commercially, debuting at number 2 and going gold, it was negatively received by most critics. The main criticism of the album was a lack of substance and overall unfamiliarity with the genre of rock, with one critic saying it seemed like Wayne liked the idea of rock better than the genre itself. Wayne, known for his prolific output, didn't seem to be too fazed by the bad reviews. He released I Am Not a Human Being, a highly praised rap album, just 8 months later in 2010. Number 7. Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg first made his way to fame as the gangster rapper signed to Suge Knight's Death Row Records in the early 90s. Back then, Snoop found himself under fire for lyrics that were considered violent and misogynistic, and was even put on trial for a murder case that he eventually beat. But now, in 2020, Snoop looks a lot more like rap's fun uncle than he does a violent killer. Perhaps best known for his intense and vocal love for cannabis, it's no surprise that his first foray into a musical genre outside of rap was reggae. After a trip to Jamaica in 2012, Snoop learned about the Nyabingi branch of the Rastafari movement. Inspired by the culture and musicians like Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, Snoop decided to release Reincarnated, a 12-track reggae album. The record went on to receive mixed reviews, with most critics agreeing that it was a fine attempt at pop reggae, but as an addition to the canon of righteous Rastafarian spiritual music, it's profoundly unconvincing and a bit insulting. Snoop seems to have taken the criticism to heart, as he left behind the reggae genre in favor of funk for his next album, 7 Days of Funk, which I can't even hate on just because artists trying out new genres is something to be applauded. Number 6. Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon series is his most beloved and acclaimed body of work. So when Cudi released Satellite Flight: Journey to Mother Moon in 2014, many of his fans believed that this was an indication his next release would be Man on the Moon 3. However, the next release was actually Speedin' Bullet to Heaven, an experimental indie rock release in which Cudi found himself collaborating with Beavis and Butthead creator Mike Judge. Unfortunately for Cudi, the album received mixed reviews, with most critics leaning towards the negatives. The album debuted at number 36 on the Billboard 200, which is the rapper's lowest charting album ever. Despite the poor reception, Cudi maintains he's proud of the work, both for the risk that he took and also for the way that he candidly addressed his mental health issues. He also stated in interviews that the album was cathartic to him and allowed him to rekindle an emotional connection to music that he had previously feared he had lost. Though the album has become a bit of a cult classic since its release, Cudi has found himself switching back to focus more completely on his hip-hop roots and has experienced a comeback on the scene since he worked on Kids See Ghosts with Kanye West in 2018. Number 5. Takashi 69. Takashi 69 is known for two things: his meteoric rise and fall through the hip-hop industry, and his hyper-aggressive, ultra-violent songs about gangs, weapons, and money. However, a lesser-known fact about the rapper is that on his quest for fame, he experimented with several different sounds before settling on his current style. In the earliest phases of his career, 6ix9ine worked closely with Zillakami, producing melodic trap songs. Though still pretty aggressive, they sound more similar to certain aspects of melodic Chicago drill. But Takashi wasn't done there. He has also forayed into the world of Latin music. In fact, the rapper has had 3 songs break into the top 10 on the Latin charts, his most recent being his first solo Latin effort, a track named Yaya. And he also has BB, which features popular artist Anuel A. The switch did not surprise many rap fans, who believe that due to the deconstruction of his credibility from his highly publicized criminal trial, Takashi was bound to try to segue into the Latin music market to keep up his visibility. And I think that would be a good thing. I'd prefer him making Latin music than trying to keep up this whole gangster rap facade thing he has going on. Number 4. Mac Miller. Mac Miller once described himself as a studio rat, saying that sometimes he spent as much as 3 weeks without ever leaving his home studio while recording music. As a result, Mac's discography, both public and unreleased, is enormous, and filled with tracks that deviate from the type of hip-hop that made him famous. Throughout his career, Mac had experimented with his sound frequently. Starting as a frat rapper, Mac quickly evolved his style to incorporate psychedelic influences, and began to make darker music, before finally beginning to focus on self-composition and a softer, gentler songwriting style. Over the course of his career, Mac had released everything from traditional hip-hop to G-funk to traditional ballads. But perhaps the most experimental release of his career was the 2016 release, The Divine Feminine. Here, Miller channels funk, rap, and primarily neo-soul, a subgenre of soul that incorporates aspects of jazz, hip-hop, electronica, and even pop. The album, meant to be a testament to the powerful influence of women in Miller's life, started as an EP but grew to a full-length album, recruiting features from artists like Kendrick Lamar and CeeLo Green along the way. The album was met with generally positive reviews, and Miller was given substantial credit for attempting such a risky departure from his previous styles. Here's hoping that he had more of that style of music recorded, and we might be able to hear it in the future. Number 3. Childish Gambino. Childish Gambino, also commonly known as Donald Glover, was once described by community creator Dan Harmon as this generation's Renaissance man. When you look at Glover's track record over the past 10 years, it's kind of hard to disagree. Glover has established himself as a talented actor, writer, director, and singer, working on most of these projects simultaneously. When his Childish Gambino persona was first born back in 2008, Gambino was met with accusations of his rapping being corny, a claim that followed his music up until the release of his 2013 album, Because of the Internet. This album was received positively and established Gambino as a real rapper to many skeptics. However, Glover began to express an interest in moving away from hip-hop, something he had embraced with the release of his 2016 album, Awaken My Love. The album, which features almost no rapped verses, instead leaned heavily into funk, soul, and R&B elements. The single Redbone launched Glover fully into the mainstream consciousness as an artist. As of 2020, Glover claims he has retired from the Childish Gambino persona permanently, releasing the album 3/15/20 as a farewell to that chapter of his career. Will Glover continue to release music, or will he focus his attention on his acting and television career? Number 2. Drake. Whether you love him or you hate him, Drake is inarguably the most commercially successful rapper of our generation, and potentially the most famous living entertainer. And though he is credited as a major pioneer of the new Toronto subgenre of hip-hop, over the course of his decade-long career, Drake has turned to experimenting with various genres of music in order to keep his catalog fresh. Perhaps most controversially is his fascination with dancehall, a Jamaican genre loosely related to reggae that makes extensive use use of patois, a regional dialect that is often used as slang in Toronto. Drake has released an array of dancehall or dancehall-inspired tracks over his career. The most notable is probably One Dance, but others include Passion Fruit, Controlla, and Madiba Rhythm. While it's easy to see why a Toronto native like Drake might be interested in the genre, there has been much debate over whether or not Drake's foray into the music counts as appropriation. Despite this, Drake has received cosigns from notable dancehall pioneers, such as Popcaan, Mavado, and even Rihanna. Fader, in defense of Drake, argues that he has risen to a level of cultural translator, similar to Diddy's role in bending hip-hop genres in the late 90s. What do you guys think? At number 1, we have Kanye West. If you were to listen to Kanye's 2008 album 808s and Heartbreak without any context today, you might think that it sounds like a fairly standard hip-hop album. However, when the album was released 12 years ago, it was considered a revolutionary imagining of what hip-hop could be. The album's heavy use of synthesizers and autotune borrowed from aspects like electronica, soul, and pop music. The contents of the album were about love, loss, and grief, topics often considered taboo in early hip-hop, in fear of being perceived as soft. Some critics compared the album to 80s new wave at its loneliest. This was not only a major musical departure from West's previous discography, it was a major departure from everything hip-hop had done up until this point. Because of how many genres the album combines, many critics find it difficult to relegate it to just one genre. However, the general consensus is that the album fits in the criteria of electro-pop album. Regardless of what you consider it, one thing is clear. The album was so influential that it quite literally reshaped modern hip-hop, and the influence of it can be heard in every current artist from Future to Tyler the Creator to DaBaby. Do you think there's any hip-hop album that was more influential than 808s? If so, leave it in the comments below. And before you leave, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to our channel.